in 20 minutes so far. I've met an agent, property management company, contractor.
I guarantee you the answer is in this room.
Growing this place of being legal services for the last couple of years.
I'm investing in Windsor because I believe in this city.
Your network is your net worth. Properties are cheap, the numbers make sense, and there's a lot of growth potential here.
Okay, guys, ladies, welcome to Tuesday Talk Series, something new that we're starting in the WinCity Investors Club. Thanks so much for joining us. We had to move things around a little bit where we used to have physical meetings, for those of you who don't know, but I think this is so much better because now we can actually have a panel of experts who don't have to make the trip out to Windsor, but we can still pick their brains, and we can actually have a question and answer, a live question and answer session. I'm just going to keep admitting people as I talk. But today we're going to be talking about landlords, and specifically we have two experts in the room over here. I'll start with Sarah. So Sarah Larby is one of the co-founders of the Right Club. She has her own podcast. So if you haven't heard that, you should get on that ASAP. Where Do I Invest by Sarah Larby. Awesome podcast. She's a coach. She's a full-time employee. She's got so much stuff going on. I think she's a fellow investor as well. I think now, what is it, Sarah? 10 properties or more?
Yeah, 12 doors, 10 properties. Have a sixplex closing, in a little while too that we've firmed up on. So
awesome. So you know all about tenants and landlord issues. So welcome to our series. And I'll quickly move on to Kayla Andrade. So Kayla is the co-founder of, founder or co-founder? Correct me if I'm wrong. Founder of Ontario Landlords Watch. Just you. Yeah, you're fighting on behalf of the thousands of landlords. So thank you for that in the first place. She's a fellow investor as well. So thank you for being here, ladies, and thank you, Kayla, for doing what you do. For those who don't know much about the Ontario Landlords Watch, maybe you want to give us a little brief on what exactly you do there?
So Ontario Landlords Watch started off as a closed Facebook group on Facebook, in where we have landlords, property managers, real estate agents, and paralegals. We've come together to talk about initial municipal policies that affect landlords or the rental business, and then we started to speak of different issues and solutions within the Residential and Tenancy Act and the Landlord and Tenant Board. But the most of what we do in the group now is that we understand the issues. Now, as a group, we create solutions on how to fix the RTA and the LTB a way that it can benefit good landlords, good tenants, and the taxpayers.
Perfect. I love it. I think you definitely need to put the links in the chat room, Kayla, if you don't mind. So for those of us who are not part of your group already, we need to. And then I think we'll talk about it later, but if there's anything that we need to sign and be part of that group, then definitely, let us know so we can add our voices to support the cause, right? For sure.
Oh, definitely. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Let's get into it. So the meat of it, we all know Doug Ford came out with these wonderful words of his, and that's probably now scarred in all landlords' memory, right? Where he said that we don't have to pay rents if you can't afford it. April 1st has come and gone. I don't know if a lot of other groups actually have had the chance to talk to people after April 1st, because I know that was a big cloud hanging over everybody's head, right? April 1st and what's going to happen with that. So simple question, Sarah. April 1st came and went. Did you get all your money? Did you get all your rent?
I got all of my rent. I had one tenant that was about $200 short, who's been in my property since 2015 and has always been great. So I know they will, and they do want to catch up. I was not so much worried for me about April 1st. It's just going to be more interesting to see what happens in May and if this keeps going on. Because if you think about it, April, they likely worked for the majority of that month of March, or at least half.
Yeah.
This coming month, I think, is going to be more interesting. And I think that's going to be a question in a lot of people's mind. I think April 1st, and Kayla can jump in on this, but April 1st was going to be a lot of the tenants that are trying to rent strike or people that are so close to the edge. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people like that, or people that want to take advantage, in my opinion, of not paying. But May 1st, I think is going to be a true test of what it is. I've talked to a lot of investors. I would say a lot of them have got paid the majority of their rent for April. There are a few that just didn't get paid for different reasons. I think there's a process ahead of time that you want to do, and this is big on communication and just making sure that like you don't find out on April 1st that your tenant can't pay, but you take a step back. And I would say mid-March is when you start talking to them about it, right? And then just keep checking in. Just like for May, start checking in. Don't wait for May 1st to happen and then for you to find out. Start working on something now. But there's unfortunately, just like there's great landlords and there's great tenants, there's people that are out there taking advantage, whether it's landlords or tenants, of the other. And I think that is something that's scary because there is a group that's forming and creating a lot of voices out there. But Kayla, feel free to jump in and talk about that.
Oh, no, honestly, Sarah, I'm listening here going I spoke with Sarah, we talked about this, and it's like the knowledge that we were able to share with each other, she's doing so great on explaining how this wave is going to happen. And that's where everyone in the media is yeah, what's going on for April 1st? What's going on? It's you know what? We're going to have a wave of people who want to abuse the system taking advantage of April 1st. We're going to have people who are just strapped for cash, realizing everything's closed, taking that opportunity to feel the panic and the fear of not knowing when your next dollar is going to come, and they're going to keep their money. They may not want to, but they really don't know. They have no one knows right now. So when it comes down to them being April 1st, and then the second month, you're still going to have those people. Plus, you're going to have people making partial payments, the ones that really want to try to pay. And then the next month after that, those people who really want to pay, now it's getting those chunks of installment payments are probably going to get lower and lower till it's no rent at all coming in. And this is when you're going to see the potential of landlords who don't qualify for deferred mortgages. They're going to start falling off like flies. Yeah. And this is the way that we lobby the government is to talk about how they need to respect the small and pop operation landlords in order to protect their current housing stock now and for the future. So there's got to be BC, they got it. They got a rent subsidy ready to go, at least $500 plus other type of revenue that's going to come from the government. And then Canada, we have them Justin Trudeau, don't worry about being kicked out because it's not going to happen. Everything's on hold. Doug Ford, okay. You got John Tory, he's completely going, you guys got to work it out. And it's you know what? The government's always been involved for the Residential and Tenancy Act, the Landlord and Tenant Board. And now that it's chaos, they want to say work it out. No, government needs to step up.
Yeah. Listen, I think we dived head first into this topic, right? There's so much going on over here, and I'm just soaking it all up in. I think for our audience, we see a lot of them stopped at, okay, hold on, April 1st game. Did I get paid in the first week?
I get so passionate over this.
I know. I can see that. I can hear that. So it's awesome because you guys are fighting all our causes. So let's try to eat the elephant in small pieces, as I like to say.
Let's do that.
Yeah, let's go back to April 1st. Sarah, you mentioned the strike groups. So I don't know if everybody in our audience has heard this. And by the way, for those who have joined in, listen, if you got any questions, Kayla and Sarah and myself are experts in this, right? As landlords, if something's happened to you that you want to share or you want to get some advice on, put that in the chat room. We'll collect all of that. If we don't answer it right now, we'll come back and we'll answer it later, right? So put that in the chat. Keep your questions coming so we can get that live answered as much as possible. But going back to the strike group, Sarah, we've heard about them, and there's these petitions going on Facebook and so on and so forth. For those who are in social media, it got to the point that I just wanted to stop on social media because I was getting bombarded not only from the strike
group.
You
get brought into this big deep hole, and then it's hard to get out, and then you get so enraged by how some of these comments come out and how people think sometimes. It's if we were not here and we were not providing you housing, where do you think you would live? Yeah,
no, absolutely. I can honestly say, in Windsor, I don't know if there was any local one. I like to think that I have my ear to the ground here, but I haven't heard anything local. So I don't know in the areas that you guys are in. I know there was one that was Ontario-wide, right? I mean, people were going even Canada-wide.
Yeah.
Trying to do that.
So
Touch
it
wood,
really,
me
it really
personally,
started in
have any
Toronto,
issues.
but then it expanded into the GTA.
Yeah. Whatever happened to that? Does anybody know if they're still going on, or are they still lobbying, or like, there was that one. There was another one for
They're not
landlords.
going anywhere anytime soon. They have no other causes, unfortunately, to fight for, and they found one that they're like, you know what? Let's just do this.
They're in isolation. They got time.
They do. And unfortunately, as landlords, we've never organized to have one voice coming back.
Well,
right?
I think Kayla has been working on that for the last.
And she has, and I think this is where part of it is. It's not, we have to support Kayla. I mean,
it's not Kayla no more. We got a team. We have a team being put together.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we'll get there. So, going back again to April 1st, Sarah, you said that you got all your rent shy $200. I can say I got all my rent for my tenants. I have, 7 doors or something like that. And how about you, Kayla? Did you have any issues?
I am one tenant that tends to pay on the 8th of every month, still outstanding right now, and a mom with 3 kids who got laid off from the mall. She's still owing $200.
Okay, so that's not too bad, and I'm sure. Hope
that's out of 17 doors.
Yeah. So that's not too bad. I hope for for most of our audience, it went smoothly as well. But the question is, let's say you did not get that money, right? You do not get the April 1st rent. What do you do? What do we do as landlords? Other than get out of here and talk to each other and vent our frustrations, right? Is there something? What about a process? Do we issue the N4 or
yes.
because there's no evictions, we just let it slide?
No, don't let it slide. So first and foremost, I think there's a conversation to have with your tenant, right? Can they not pay anything, or can they pay a portion? Can you work out some kind of payment plan that you are comfortable with, knowing they're going to pay back and that they're comfortable with, first and foremost? But I would issue the N4 because at the end of the day, at some point, the board will reopen. And I don't know what's going to happen to those N4s. Are they going to all go through, or are they not going to go through? But why not issue the N4? Because at the end of the day, if you don't issue the N4 and then they start opening the board and then they're taking into the N4s, then you got to start your N4 again, or you got to start at that process. So you might have lost 2 months. So I would say do the N4 regardless. Get a paralegal on your side and just have them walk you through a specific, like your specific scenario, and everybody's going to be different. But I think, if it was me and I had a tenant that could not pay, the $200 one, fine, she's been around since 2015. But if it's a new tenant or a tenant that you're not sure if they're going to catch up, or if they're going to want to catch up, absolutely issue the N4 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about, payment plans, Sarah, over there. I guess that's going to be coming soon, when we hit the months of May and June and so on and so forth. When you talk about payment plans, like, I don't know what people do. I text most of my tenants, right?
Yeah.
Is that a good enough evidence to say, okay, if we come up with a payment plan and it's on text, would that work? Or is it something that you need to formalize again by email, or, some kind of formal letter, like a handwritten letter saying that, okay, you agree to these terms, and whether you keep it or not is a different story, but at least now you have something in physical.
I probably would do a letter that they sign and you sign, and you can start filing it. Because if you just have a text and you just lose your text at some point, or 2 months go by, like, you're going to have some kind of information. I had some friends that had a lawyer draft up a letter saying, here's option 1, here's option 2. I don't know if the lawyer is going to enforce anything anyways. I think it was more of a scare tactic regardless. Option 1 and option 2, because they hinted that they may not have the ability to pay. And they're like, you know what, don't worry about it. We've got it and we're going to pay for it. And here's the thing, when you issue an N4, and we have something in the chat, Chapman was saying, my fear is that they're going to be more stubborn. Probably, I think it's how you position it as well. I would just say, like, this is a tough time. It's nothing against you. It's just a policy that we have in place. Then this is what we do. And I think if you issue an N4 and you've talked to your tenant, like, upon originally signing your lease agreement, because that's a conversation that we have, right? If I don't see the rent on the 2nd, automatically you're going to have, this is going to happen. The N4 is going to happen. Don't take it personally. It's part of policy and procedure. I would blame it on policy and procedure. And keep the relationship. And at the end of the day, if they pay, they're caught up, that N4 goes away, right? Like, you're not doing it to punish them. You're just doing it to, like, ensure that you don't have to start in 2 months from now from day one.
Yeah.
Uh, Kayla, if you wanted to add something on that, I mean, just before that, sorry, I think the documentation is super important, right? It's super important. Like, listen, if the guy is coming on April 1st and saying he can't pay the rent when COVID is, 2 weeks in, it's clear that it's already planned, right? Or he's one of those strike groups. So,
or have them talk to you. Like, it's also their responsibility to come and tell you ahead of time. Yes, it's our responsibility to reach out to them ahead of time, but they should come up with a plan also. It's not just up to landlords to say, oh, it's April 1st, why haven't you contacted? Like, it's up to them too to contact us and say, hey, I'm a little bit worried about May. And that's a conversation even that you might have. This might be text, hey, let me know if you're some issues with paying your next month's rents. Let's talk about it. Let's figure something out. Reach out to them beforehand, but then just make sure that that's also on them, and you leave that on them to say, by the way, if you have a further month that you think you're going to be stuck, please let me know ahead of time so that we can plan something ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree. Kayla, do you want to add anything on that, or?
You guys got it. It's document. It's about giving the proper forms, writing in a letter, giving it to them in a nice, gentle way to still say that you're still willing to work with them, and hand them over all the different links for government programs that are out there to help people through this pandemic, so that you're literally guiding them into where they can be getting money at this time. And if they don't want to work with you, always have that in writing as well. So it might be text message, which that will be good to show how they're not trying to get an agreement with you. And some of them will start to not like the payment agreement, because once they put it on paper, they're like, no, they feel more pressure that they have to do it, and it's more legal and binding. So a lot of them will probably just want to just do it through text, but either way, it's just, you can still use your text messages and the interaction that you're having with your people at the board, but show that they haven't wanted to work with you if that was the case. And that's what we're hoping to bank on when everything does get open up and you can issue these type of applications. And if you're still having to issue, noise complaints or any other, safety issues with your tenants, and like keep giving those type of forms as well, because we don't know how things are going to open up.
Yeah. No, absolutely. April is gone and now May is coming, and that's the next big toll gate, I think, for most of us to say, okay, we passed that, then that's another month gone, right? Sarah, you mentioned about communication. I think communication is super important. We posted up a sample letter on our Facebook group, giving the links to the government programs and the government aids that I shared with my tenants in March. So do you have like a date, or do you have like a set thing, or do you pick up the phone and you call every single one of them, or you text them? What do you guys do? What's the best practice here?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my tenants, I start with texting. If there's no problem, really, ultimately, like I avoid email unless it's something that's more formal, and all of them so far in April have been fine. Or for April 1st. So in 2 weeks, I'm going to do the same thing. And then if there is some concern, then I'm going to say, okay, let's try to work out a payment plan. Here's the thing. And I will say that it comes back down to screening your tenants in the first place and really picking the right ones that you are comfortable communicating with for years to come, because a lot of them are not moving out for, years. Some of them are going to be there for 5 years. So do you feel comfortable communicating with them? And so I think, that screening process is like probably the most important, so that you do have that good communication moving forward. Unfortunately, this is a time where, or fortunately, if you were a good landlord and you've respected your tenants over time, this should work out in your favor right now.
Mm-hmm.
If it's the other way around, I'll tell you, if you delayed basic repairs, necessities that need to be fixed, your tenant might say, you know what, I'm going to take a little bit of advantage here, because unfortunately they can. So the relationship starts from before you even give them the key to your property. I am adding a few key screening measures to my screening process moving forward.
Wait. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about
okay.
That's for sure. We gotta hit that note at the end. Okay. Definitely. But going back to the messaging and the communication, definitely, I think, May is coming up. You got at least another week before you start that communication. A lot of people, I think, are fearful. Like, you get the place tenanted and you get paid every month on the first of the month. You just lose communication with the tenant, right? Who's been there maybe 6 months, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, whatever. And you think everything's hunky dory. But I think now's the time to pick up that phone really and call your tenants, and just a simple like, hey, how's it going? Are you guys safe? Everybody's healthy. What are you guys doing to pass the time? So on and so
Yeah, of
forth,
course.
right?
If you haven't talked to them for a while, yeah, pick up the phone and call them if it's been a while for sure.
Yeah. Kayla, I got one for you here. I had a few acquaintances or people in my network, giving me feedback saying that, what the tenants are saying to us is that, oh, you got your mortgage deferred, so that means we don't have to pay rent. What's the answer to that?
Well, right away, you tell them that not all landlords can defer their payments. And first of all, even if they could, it's to the point where that it's going to be on their record and you're still going to be paying interest on that amount of money. And in reality, the money is still due. We as landlords still need to pay the banks at the end. But if we have our tenants who are not paying and falling behind, for them to catch up is almost going to be near impossible.
Yeah,
so that's what,
I think this is coming more from the strike groups again, people who are misinformed, right? And it's just cheap, right?
In the face that you have your taxes, you have your property taxes, or your taxes, property taxes, your insurance, property management fees, condo fees, maintenance. Like, the amount of stuff that's out there is we still have bills that need to be paid. Like, the government, they just want it to say, hey, you guys still have to pay your hydro bill, you're just not paying the high rate. It's like, well, what about us? You just gave away our stuff for free.
Yeah.
So that's part where, it's just about the education part to them too, because some of them will feel that you're not paying. So as long as they understand that and explain it to them in a nice way, then, they probably will do whatever they can to make sure that they have the rent paid as well, if they're that type of tenant.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that it's about education, right? Because let's be honest, that's the difference between them being renters and us being landlords. They don't have that business acumen to say, okay, it's not just mortgage that we're talking about, it's all these other things that we have to pay as well, right? Condo fees, be it, or whatever, property taxes, insurance, and maintenance, and so on and so forth. So definitely all about education. I think one good thing that possibly can come with that for tenants who can't afford because they lost a job or whatever, and say, yes, okay, we got our mortgage deferred, we're getting charged interest on top of that, maybe we can defer your rent as well, right? As long as there's an agreement, again, documented, and saying, okay, let's defer payment, come to some kind of payment plan and whatnot, right? We have a question here from, have you guys, this is Kayla's boat right here. I mean, have you guys received any feedback from elected officials if they're willing to talk about this? I've written to many, but they all said try to work it out with your tenants.
So we're communicating with my MPP to have more of a feedback coming from the minister themselves. Right now, Ontario Landlords Watch is transitioning right now as a lobbyist group. That does change a lot of ways that we get to speak with the elected officials and how we get to speak to them. And in the meantime, we've had meetings with the parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Housing, which used to be Christine Hogarth, and the new one is Parm Gill. And we gave a 10-page report. We're also trying to lobby and trying to speak with the Association of Municipalities, and we're definitely trying to connect with the minister himself as well as the Attorney General. But in order for us to make the next move, we need to have ourselves officially lobbied, officially registered as a lobbyist, and then we have to come up together as a group with our 5 goals in order to what we want to lobby with as together. And then the other side of it is to reconstruct the way that we currently deal with landlord and tenant board issues, because the landlord and tenant board is not going to be able, it couldn't even hold up now before the pandemic. It's going to be, it's chaos if it opens up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Kayla, for that, is that something that when you say we as a group, you're talking about OLW, Ontario Landlords Watch, right? Or
Yeah, so Ontario Landlords Watch, through advocating for 10 years, we've got to meet some very much powerhouse people. Like, they're phenomenal, such as Sarah Larby, who is a part of the council that we've created. And we're going to branch that off of Ontario Landlords Watch into an actual lobbying group. So it's like Ontario Landlords Watch, we're there to help each other, the day-to-day operations, provide people with discounts to credit checks, pick up the phone, and I talk to everyone who needs help on there. But we have to have a separate area where, you know, this is pure lobbying and this is what we need their support with. So it's going to be two separate things, but I'm definitely going to be putting my effort into getting our landlords a small mom and pop heard.
I love it. Unfortunately, we couldn't have you here before physically to actually talk to our group, but you know, stuff like this, we can get that word out as well. It's for our group. You know, we have to get people involved. We have 1,000+ members in our group, and I'm not sure a lot of people have heard about Ontario Landlord Watch or are involved, right? So as landlords, this is why we need to, pull all our forces together, right? We have some leadership here, we have some guidance, and let's put our efforts behind that and give our voices as well to support people like Kayla and Sarah in helping us out, right? So again, Kayla, before we go, we got to put the links down in the chat group there.
So yeah, I'll get that ready right now. So if I don't like I'm paying attention to you, I am.
Yeah, just going back to Chaman and his comments about talking to the MPs and so on and so forth. I think kudos to you, Chaman, that you actually did that. Call you MPs. I know a few others in our group have done that as well. Personally, I have not, but I think I'm going to, right? Or at least write a letter. It's up to each of us.
Call them.
Yeah, well, there you go. Call them. They have to answer a call, right? They have to listen to us. At least, that's the least they can do, right? So it's up to each one of us to pick up the phone and actually make the change, right? So don't think that it just drops in the ocean, but every single last one of those drops make an effort. So, okay, we have a question from Julie here, Julie Morton, and I think this is up Sarah's boat again. Is Sarah's alley? I mean, you were beginning to talk about that. I've seen a post where in the future a landlord planned on asking tenants if they paid rent during the pandemic and asking for proof. Any comments on that? Do you think that will be allowed in future tenant screening?
Do I think it's going to be allowed? I mean, here's the thing. If they're going to come in my properties and they don't want to do it, no problem. They won't be a tenant of mine. But no, I did. So I did mention this on Facebook a couple weeks ago. Here's the thing. Screening my tenant is the only control I really truly have as a landlord. So I am taking that as the most important part of all of my real estate investing and everything that I'm doing, because that can make or break the whole entire investment, right? If you mess up a little bit on a BRRRR and you're over budget, time will fix that. You mess up on a tenant, it's really difficult, and it's going to be even more difficult moving forward to get them out. So I do not take any risks and any chances on any of that. And I'm not saying that somebody's not going to slip through the cracks at one point or another. Like, we've had better ones than others, and we've refined our process. But one of the things that I did mention on Facebook was that I am going to start increasing some of my measures of screening. So even if it's next year, I am going to be asking for proof of payment April, May, and June. And if they could not pay, I'm not going to disqualify someone if they could not pay and I see that maybe half the rent was taken and they had planned for something and then half the rent was taken 15 days later or was paid 15 days later. I just want to know what the plan was. And I really want to try to avoid having one of those tenants that just chose not to pay and showed that there was money in there. And those are the ones I want to avoid, right? Everyone's going to go through a hard time. That is okay, as long as they had a prepayment plan that they've paid for it. So I'm probably going to be asking for March, April, and May, and depending on how long this lasts, I want statements. And here's the thing: is right now I feel like the pendulum on Landlord-Tenant Board and the Residential Tenancies Act. As soon as your tenants are in there, really ultimately it's very favored towards them. So if I can do a little bit of extra screening, I will. Calling past tenant or landlords or the current landlord to verify how this was dealt with is going to be a huge part of my screening process moving forward, in addition to everything that I do. And it should be, because why wouldn't I have a little bit of control over the only one thing I have as a control measure for placing my tenants in the properties? Of course, if they don't want to, they don't have to rent my place. Go somewhere else. Someone else can deal with them. I know it's pretty harsh, but I mean, it's black and white. here's the thing. I think a lot of our rights are taken away. I'm not doing anything. I won't necessarily, tell them that that's why they're being disqualified, because you don't ever want to give them an actual reason. But here's all the things I need. This. It's going to be, proof of income, all the other things that I ask for plus that. So if that was the one thing and everything else works, I will still eliminate them if they didn't pay and they had the money to pay.
Excellent question. Excellent answer. I think, for those of you who are have some experience in project management, they always say that the key to success is planning, right? It's the start. It's actually before you even start the project. So in this case, if you do the screening right, as Sarah says, and that's ballsy, Sarah, thank you, be very, very harsh and very, very specific on what you want and who you're letting into your property, you're not going to have these problems. I don't think this whole meeting would have happened, right? Because most people would have paid on time if you've done that right. I think a lot of us are fearful on the newbie investor. You have one property, one rental property, maybe two, and your thing is you want to get somebody in there as quick as possible, right? And sometimes you take what you get, right? Windsor.
The other thing I would just add is I probably would also start incorporating like a service like Neighborly on top of all of your regular screenings, because you still need to do your Kijiji ad screening. You're screening a lot of people out that way. If they can't answer your questions, you're doing your phone screen. Only then after that, if they pass those two steps, do I let them into my property. But when they're doing their application, I may ask them to do the Neighborly check as well, as an added piece too. So.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. I want to hear from guys if you guys have any student rentals, because I know for students it's a little bit different, where government programs may not be applicable to them because they work part-time or they don't work enough hours and so on and so forth. Anybody is having any issues with students and student payment for students? Same for Airbnb. I think Airbnb is probably one of the segments that are probably hit quite hard with this because of the lack of travel. So what are you guys doing if you have any Airbnb or short-term rentals to pass this time, right, where you can't get it full? Have you guys heard anything? I know, Sarah,
so I will say my blood is boiling right now, but I'll let Kayla answer because I'm going to go off on a tangent. I'm so angry.
It's supposed to be entertainment for me too, Sarah. That's
Okay, here's the thing.
I gotta change the layout of this thing because I'm in the middle of both of you on my screen here, so maybe I gotta duck out.
That's hilarious. Okay,
I
love real estate investing, and I'm here because I love it and I 100% believe it. But there's some sorry, I don't want to swear on your. There's some crap going on right now that makes my blood boil. But Kayla, answer first, and then I'll answer the Airbnb piece.
Well, where do you want me to start? You know look how I went off in the beginning. You really
Kayla, I think you have student rentals, don't you?
No, I'm a lazier investor.
Yeah.
I already when my husband's like, "Hey, babe, I just bought a 6-plex." I'm like, "Great, we got 6 more children. Thank you. Let's go with my 4."
Yeah. I would assume people who have student rentals, or that's a bigger part of their portfolio, probably have some issues. I personally, I don't have any student rentals, but I don't know what the payment plan is, but we're coming up, summer is coming close, but I guess the traffic of students coming in would be at the end of summer and so on and so forth. So, what happens if one of the students says, I can't pay rent anymore because I lost my hours at the Walmart or whatever, right? What do you do there?
Well, yeah. The student rentals are going to be, they were already on the media. They can't find a job. It's not the time for them to find a job. So now they're relocating back in with their parents. And I think that's the perk of, still being a student, and having some parents that you're able to move back in with them. So it's not going to be so damaging on others. But again, they're still probably got that government program that should be helping them at the same time. And that is going to be able to keep the roof over their heads if they're smart about it. But when you're in quarantine, you're already looking at the walls and they're all already closing in on you. The last thing you want to do is, be by yourself, that they probably want to move back in with their parents through this time as well.
Well, if they have parents to move back to, right? Again, speaking on Windsor's behalf, a lot of our students are international students.
Well, that's the thing, right? And then so they don't get the same help, the international students. I think there is help coming for students that are here, that reside in Canada.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Sean from Studio says all my students gave notice to move out on April 30th. Good news. I already had last month's rent, but I am empty on May 1st, and students don't want to commit. Okay. From what I've heard from most other investors with student rentals, usually isn't it a 12-month commitment that you have? At least that's what they try to get to, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knows in the summer, international students, most of them go back home or they take the summer off or whatever, but they're still committing to 12 months. So maybe, Sean, that's something that you have to look at for your new group of students coming in. Try and get them to commit for the full 12 months, and maybe that'll help you out. But Airbnb, Sarah, you say something about Airbnb.
Okay, there you go. Okay, here's my beef with Airbnb. Okay, I actually love Airbnb. So I have a cottage I'm Airbnb-ing, and I still use. And I was gonna take this burr that I'm doing in Burlington, and I was gonna Airbnb that. I love Airbnb, and I actually really like how they treat their clients. Like I was reading on Airbnb, like this was like 2 days ago on their site. If you are a super host and you have like 1 or 2 properties, not more, and you can show that you're losing income, there's grants that they're going to give out, like $5,000. You don't have to worry about paying it back. You just apply. And then I don't know how many millions they put into that. I thought that was really cool. And that is a good way to thank your customers for using your service. I think that's awesome. So recently, since then, like as of like today, Ontario has banned Airbnb in short term, and they are going to fine us $100,000 if they see us breaking those rules for short-term rentals. How dare they, first of all, tell us how to run our businesses to that extreme? But it really makes me wonder, and this is just my theory. I'm not saying this is true. I know we're like, here's the thing, okay? I'm very blunt. I'm very realistic. But at the end of the day, and I will say, like, I hope everybody stays healthy. And like, of course, this is like something that we need to get over with. And I feel bad for like anybody who knows somebody that's got COVID, because I have friends that have got it and it doesn't sound fun. So aside from that, here's where I'm thinking. All of a sudden, Ontario didn't like Airbnb. We know Toronto didn't like Airbnb. There's always been issues with back and forth, right? Hotels versus Airbnbs, long-term rentals versus Airbnbs. And then all of a sudden they say no more Airbnbs. So I don't know if they think this far ahead, but as an Airbnb host, would you say, crap, what am I going to do with my property? You're either going to sell it, or they might hope that you're going to put it as a long-term rental. So are they trying to secretly add long-term rentals that are more affordable, as people are going to be like, crap, I need to save these properties. I either have to sell at a loss, make it more affordable to buy, or I have to rent to increase that rental stock. So it just makes me wonder, is that truly because people are sick? And I hope so. I hope that that's the only reason, and that they're not trying to come up with something else, behind the scenes of like trying to increase the amount of long-term rentals because there was already a shortage.
Sarah, that's the reasoning. That is the reasoning. You know it.
I mean, look, I'm not pointing fingers.
Admit it, but she knows it.
But it's weird, and it's weird that it's $100,000 fine. Like, why do you want to charge? Like, that's a bit steep to begin with. Mm-hmm. Why? And then it's like 10 million or something stupid for like a business doing it. But like, we pay taxes on them. These are our properties. Like, at some point, there's a difference between how much government is controlling and how much they're truly trying to fix things for the health benefits of everybody. And I hope that's what it is. But I'm just throwing it out there. There's already a shortage issue, and they would love to have more rental long-term properties. Just saying.
Sarah, can you share with us the article of the decision?
You can literally just Google Airbnb ban Ontario, and you will find lots of articles.
This morning, was it?
Yeah, it was today.
So what are people doing? I would love to know. I don't have any Airbnbs myself.
But you know what the thing is? Here's the other thing, is that I was going to say, you know what? If the LTB is closed, screw that. I'm not taking a chance on any new tenants right now that may or may not be able to pay. I'm going to turn some of these into Airbnbs, because I can even put it on Airbnb, and I know I get paid as soon as they come in, and I can get a damage deposit if they leave and damage the place. So there was a lot of people that were going to say, you know what, I'm either going to sell these things because I don't want to wait 18 months to get a tenant out because the board is closed and all of a sudden they haven't started paying. They would have potentially turned into short-term rentals or sold.
Yeah.
Anyway, just my theory. I am not saying, not pointing fingers, but it's very fishy.
When you talk to the elected officials, that's what they say. It's already been in the newspaper with Ottawa when they try and stop it in Toronto. They think that the market is going to be flooded with a bunch of full-time, but you know, they cash out. They cash out and they sell that property to someone who's just going to take it as their single-family home. And that's what the way that they're going to do. They think more restrictions on landlords is the better to create supply, but instead it's doing the opposite. But when they have people in power who have no clue what it's like to be on the ground, they are making policies and procedures that really affect this housing industry, and it makes it worse for all parties involved, including the taxpayers. Here's an example. The way that taxpayers are paying for housing from shelters, from emergency shelters, social housing, building it, managing it, maintain it, subsidizing it. And then you have what people are paying to having people in a hospital, which is $400 a night. And in our area, it's cost $70 to $90 a day to house someone in the system. They know if they prolong an eviction process, this is less time and money that needs to be paid by the government at having these people into shelters and emergency shelters, because taxpayers pay for people in homeless shelters to go into motels. So we pay service managers $96,000 to start just to take on claims and people's situations. The amount of money that's being wasted from our government is ridiculous. They want to take provincial, federal, and municipal funding to create 48 units in the region of Waterloo. That's $12.7 million to create 48 units. If you gave homeowners $70,000 and they can create their own secondary suite with that money, the only stipulation is that it always has to be a rental unit, and you watch but you got to remember, you got to give us a proper RTA and the LTB as well, because you can give us the money until you're blue in the face, but in reality, we still need to have a proper tool bag to be working with. And right now, the government literally, not only did they not have the tools for us before, they now took away our tool bag. So we're trying to show the government that we're better investors than them. They just need to butt out of it because their policies, their procedures, and their own rental units are suffering.
Yeah. I mean, what's going to happen with the LTB once and the RTA once this all this dust settles? Like they were, as you said before, Kayla, it was backlogged already before COVID-19, and now if people don't pay and we file the N4s and so on and so forth, there's going to be a backlog for years. What's going to happen? I just don't know. I don't know.
It's going to be a heck of a time for investors, and a lot of people are unfortunately not going to see the benefits of continuing to be landlords, and it's going to be quite an interesting time. But they've made some changes. Kayla, do you want to talk about Bill 184?
Oh my God! You want to see me on a tangent again?
Do you guys hang on, guys that are listening to this? Just let us know, do you want to hear this kind of stuff, or do you want to hear about I don't know, the BRRRR strategy, or how to do renovation?
Oh, hey, listen, the topic of discussion today is landlords. It's about the new investor and collecting the money, right? And how we're going to handle the COVID thing, right? So there's a lot of, we can go on and on and on for sure. Hey, you got, keep it coming. No, this stuff is fun.
All right, Bill 184, can we talk about that?
Really quick, Kayla.
So Bill 184 was created after the elected officials had went around to multiple different landlords associations, did a consultation with them to state what are the issues and what are your solutions. After that was done, they created Bill 184. The initial brief of what we can get from Bill 184 is that they really put in a procedure to handle landlords who are abusing N12 and N13 notices. So that would be for taking it over for your own personal use or kicking someone out for a renovation. If I'm talking really fast, I apologize. I talk to 1,000 people a day, so it's crazy. So now that I talk to too many people, the phone, I feel like I'm like this all the time because it's the way that I talk. But anyway, so Bill 184, they really talk about the N12 and the N13 on landlords abusing it and what the fine would be if you were caught doing it unlawfully. And initially, there's only about 300 to 400 applications that get brought into the landlord and tenant board for unlawful evictions. So it's not really a big issue for the tenants. The reason why I would assume that they probably did it is because after this pandemic, these N12 and N13s are probably going to be the most popular of all these applications because they just got seen how the government just threw them to the wolves and never bothered to help them. So why would I help and provide a necessity such as housing? So now if you're caught evicting someone unlawfully, it used to be 25,000. Now it's gone up to 50,000. And for a corporation, it's 100,000. It used to be 100,000. Now it's gone up to 250,000. So now if you are filing an N12 or N13 notice, they're going to keep a database at the landlord and tenant board of you filing that application because they want to keep a track record on who's actually abusing it. And the only thing that was really good on the Bill 184 is that if you're giving a rent increase out and it's above the guidelines and it's illegal, if the tenants don't say anything or fight it within that year, that becomes the lawful rent. We suggested mediation before the landlord and tenant board and in a part where a lot of cases can be dealt with instead of being heard by an adjudicator. And Bill 184 just threw mediation into a mess. They just added it. They didn't take away and then allowed the mediation to kind of counteract. They just threw it in there. And they also took water billing. So normally if you are a landlord in certain municipalities, you're now going to be responsible for your tenants' delinquent utility bills. You normally have to go to the board for an eviction for interfering with you, but they can't help you collect. You have to go to small claims. They now want to allow landlords to take their utility bills and bring them into the landlord and tenant board. So it's more like you already have too much. Why are you bringing on more? Because we're feeding a dragon. We're feeding $200 an application and tenants only have to pay $53 if not free. So the system, I think, of Bill 184 was they knew this was coming. And the first thing that all the elected officials did was get that court order, putting evictions on hold and closing up the landlord and tenant board. And now they're making us do their job because it's the government's job to do it, but they're making small landlords because we're not united. We're not united and we're not being able to affect the.
So on that note, Kayla, you and I had a quick chat before this actual meeting. You talked about the 5 things that we want to get changed at the LTB. Can you share with us what those five things are and how can we support that?
Well, not speaking to the council yet because we want to make sure all council members and the group is permission, but I can say from my what I'm going to bring to the table is that it's the non-payment of rent. It's about having the mediator deal with the non-payment of rent before, so it doesn't have to be heard by an adjudicator. And we're going to work government services like rent subsidies and rent banks that are currently still out there and available. We're going to use them side by side with the type of N4s that need to be, but in a different policy. Then we have our damages. Everyone's asking for damage deposits. You know that these tenants can cause so much damage that it doesn't even cover, the last month's rent that you could be using towards the damage. We would be happy to say that tenants would have a mischief or a vandalism charge if you see that it's beyond the wear and tear. And landlords can take before and after pictures, tenants can take before and after pictures. So this way you can start getting the tenants to respect the unit or they have to pay for it to fix it. The 2.2% increase, every unit's different. If it's a condo, all-inclusive plus utilities, we really want to encourage that each landlord should be able to increase their rent rate based on the utilities or the condo fees that have that increased on them to make it fair to help us manage our units for the now and for the future. And a late fee. We're the only business out there that can't charge interest or a late fee based on tenants not paying. And the overall objective is really streamlining the landlord and tenant board process and getting more education out to the landlords and the tenants, mediation, and allow us to simplify the fact that we have an issue, it needs to be dealt with quickly so that tenants know that housing is your number one thing that you need to be taking care of and the government needs to support it.
Perfect. I love it. Listen, guys, you can feel the passion from Kayla about this. Join her group because these are Kayla, if I understand right, it's not passed by the council. This is what you want, but there's going to be the 5 changes that we're going to be discussing, right?
Bill,
Kinda like-
that those five, that's what I want. Bill 184, it's only went through its first read, so it still has to go through 2 more readings, and the second read is supposed to allow public consultation to change Bill 184. But based on the pandemic, I think Bill 184 needs to be scrapped, and we need to have a different bill being presented.
Yeah. Okay. So I think, again, guys, we can sit here and talk all night about it, but we don't have that, unfortunately. I think you guys got to go and join Kayla's Facebook group there, the Ontario Landlords Watch. Let's go back to COVID-19 and landlord issues and what we're doing here. There's a couple of things I want to discuss. Actually, one of the things that you mentioned when you were talking, Kayla, was about rent banks. So I understand in some municipalities there is support out there for renters if they can't meet the rents, regardless of COVID-19 and things like that, right? Just from financial issues. Can you talk a little more about that? And if this is a provincial-wide thing, or is it a municipality thing, or a city thing? I mean, what exactly is it?
Currently, right now, we have, like in Cambridge, it's called Lutherwood. It's a non-profit organization, and the region, the municipality and the region had offload that type of job to them. But they get their money from the region, and I'm sure through regional taxes as well as provincial funding comes into these rent banks. It just so happens I called a rent bank today to find out exactly if they're technically for arrears and last month's deposit. They're actually put a hold on dishing out money to the tenants for arrears, but they are giving money for last month's rent deposits. And they said that they're very busy on giving out last month's rent deposits, which is really shocking because I know a lot of people are not renting out units. But now that they've put it on hold, that's funds that are technically there on a regular basis. And we want to start encouraging our elected officials from the provincial government and federal government to be issuing funds to organizations such as that in order for tenants or landlords, hopefully landlords, can apply to retrieve that type of relief. And that way you're keeping your rental stock throughout Ontario stronger because you're backing it, you're supporting it.
Yeah,
and that's,
I love that. I mean, in Cambridge, that's what you have. Sarah, do you have anything in Burlington, Oakville, Hamilton areas with something similar, or?
I mean, Kayla would probably know a little bit more than me on those types of things. Yeah.
Every region has one. It just all depends on what the name is and if it's handled by OW. Ontario Works.
Okay, so guys, if you're listening over here, I mean, I know you are. If you guys have any experience with rent banks, I want to hear about it, because in Windsor, I think this is something definitely that, it's another tool in our arsenal that we can actually help us with our tenants, right? If they, for whatever reason, can't make rent, regardless of COVID-19 or not, that's something that we should know about so we can actually inform them about. If the money's there or not, that's a different question. But, if it's a tool that they can use, then we should be making them aware of it. Okay, awesome.
They'll bail you out once a year. They'll bail the tenants out once a year.
And that's better than nothing, right? That's better than nothing. So, okay. And then the last thing before we actually take some of these questions that have come up is, did you do anything nice for the tenants who actually paid? Is anybody doing that? Let's talk about something good, right? I mean, everybody, as landlords, we were all fearful of April 1st, and May is coming too. But did anybody do anything nice for the tenants who actually paid and go out to
them?
Thank you.
I can answer so beforehand, what I did is I reached out to them and I'm like, if you need any food or you need any supplies, like, let us know. We're happy to have some stuff delivered. So I had put that on the table prior, aka not rent, but if you need food or any supplies, we're happy to have that delivered. So the offer is always there. I'm happy to send them some food if they need some food. Like, I don't want them to go hungry. I'll pay for the food.
Can I jump in here, Kayla? Sorry, Sarah, just 1 second. Listen, I got a call from a real estate agency, right? Just random call. And it was a 647 number, and they told me exactly the same thing. They said, listen, you're in a database somehow or the other. I've never used them before. I don't know where they got my number from. And they said, listen, if you have any older or elderly people in your home and, you're having some trouble, COVID-19, if you need some food, we'll get some food out there. And the first thing that came to my mind was, man, that's cheesy. Yeah, that's like, oh my God, you're just trying to get my business at the end of the day, right? And I don't mean that as an offensive comment to you, but when I heard that, that's the impression I got. So I'm just thinking, like, if I went to my tenants and I said that to them, what would they be thinking, right? And
they were actually pretty appreciative. I think it's just because you're in a different spot, right? Like, your business, they're tenants, they have kids, they're struggling, already. I think it was actually pretty well received. Everyone was super thankful.
Did anybody take you up on that offer? Just out of curiosity.
Not yet.
Okay, good. So good. You screened well. Yeah. Yeah, no, I heard another podcast or something. People were talking about doing some kind of care package. Now that they receive rent, even if it's just toilet paper, right? Because there's a shortage of that, or wet wipes or Lysol wipes or something like that. Just give them, something to say that listen, you're thinking about them, and you care about that, right? So
I agree.
My hands on that stuff. I'm not giving it away.
You know what? I agree, but here's the thing. So there's two reasons that I don't think we should do it in April. Is we don't know how long this is going to last. So maybe they paid in April and all of a sudden they're not paying in May and June. I want to wait till this is all over before I offer them anything.
And then you give them something really good in the end.
Exactly. If they've got through this the whole time without missing payment, I don't want them to think, oh, well, May I'm going to pay in full. Am I going to get another gift card or another no, because you don't want it to make it an expectation over time.
Yeah.
So let's just see how this all pans out. And the ones that followed through for the 3 months or the 4 months or however this whole thing lasts, absolutely. I've taken some of my tenants to the spa in the past. I've given them $150 gift card. Some of my tenants get treated really well. But I also wouldn't do it on the first month. We're not out of the woods yet.
You got this, Sarah.
I agree. It's setting expectations, right? So, hey, listen, we got 5 more minutes. So let's go through these questions. If we have quick answers or we have answers at all, I'm going to Julie here. Julie saying complaining without action is useless. Going forward, what kind of action would you like to see more landlords taken to make these issues heard, especially regarding this pandemic? I guess this is something for you, Kayla, in the sense of, hearing our voice again. This was a one-off anomaly, obviously, right? The pandemic, but there's so many issues that we face on a day-to-day basis that you're trying to, alleviate as well. So. Mm-hmm.
Yep, that is what it is. We have our team now. We've built our warriors. Now we got to have ourselves fully registered as the lobbyist group, and then we have to have members join the lobby group in itself. We have to pay to play in reality, because when you're a lobbyist, you can actually donate to their campaigns and you get a little further with that's in it. We just have to form ourselves now and structure ourselves now that we've just spent our years building and meeting everyone, and literally from Windsor right to Ottawa. I've been talking to as many people, and that's why I was able to come across, Sarah. And we have yourself now reaching out to your network. It's about constantly coming underneath one voice.
Perfect. Yeah. Click the link, join our group. Okay. Great name, Galaxy S10. I love it. To everyone, my tenant didn't pay April and said that they will be everything in 3 months. What can I do? Let me take this one because I think Sarah already mentioned it before. I would say document it. If they agree to pay everything in 3 months, document it, issue the N4s anyways, because then you have that documentation as well. And then when it comes to 3 months, if they don't pay according to their payment plan, then definitely, go to the LTB. Hopefully we'll be opened up by then, right?
Yeah, can I add something?
Sure, go ahead.
I also wouldn't necessarily recommend that you let them pay nothing for the 3 months, because they could decide after 3 months, I'm going to move out, and then all of a sudden, they've skipped on rent for 3 months. If they can pay something, I think it's personally at this time, it's better than nothing, and still issue the N4, but have them pay something, even if it's $500 or half the rent or a quarter of the rents. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, good point. Moving on, we gave out $100 Amazon gift cards for everyone who paid on time and full. Awesome. I guess that's good. It. Yeah. Tenants know everything. They don't want to use rent bank as they will have to pay it back or show them borrowing. It's easier for tenants not to pay and keep living free. And knowing that the LTB is not operating, out for do groceries and deliver to my tenants. Also, they didn't pay rent, but they did not respond to that too. You need to screen harder, man. Come on, you need to screen harder. And if you can get them out, get them out. So
the other thing that you could do, and you
don't even have there's 2 options. You could pay it back, or it's a forgivable loan.
Yeah, absolutely. I think here's the thing is, if you think that they're going to play the system for 18 months, I know this is horrible and you probably don't want to completely come out and say this is what you want to do, but cash for keys may be an option versus having to drag it through for 18 months if you can pay them to leave for a lot less. Just my thoughts. Again, it's don't give them the money until you get the keys, but some people in dire need of money, they might just say, you know what, I'm just going to have 1 month less, but if I can get 3,000 or 4,000 from my landlord and move, maybe that's a better option. That could potentially avoid you 18 months of dragging this through. If you've got a tenant that's going to be paying and you know that they're going to be paying, don't do it. But if you're like, this tenant is going to use the system, it might
harder in this environment, eh? Because the rental stock is so low as it is, but now people are not moving or don't want to move. You can't get evicted, so it's harder. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I would use all the tools in the bag, right, to get them out. So definitely. Listen, we run out of time. Chaman, I know you have a lot of good questions. You know, we'll try and answer them offline somehow. But I want to thank Sarah and Kayla for coming on and sharing their thoughts. And you guys are very passionate about what you do, like most landlords. You know, we'll try and support you as much as possible. I think we're definitely going to have you guys back because it's so much fun talking to you guys. And next time I won't be in the middle of this. I'll change my screen somewhere else and you can just take over. Thanks so much for coming out, guys. Everybody who joined on the meeting, you know, live, and then we're going to post it up as well. Thank you for coming on. Tuesday talk series. We're going to bring a lot of people on here, experts, to talk about it. Next Tuesday, we're having Mark Baltazar. We're going to be talking about multifamily or bigger multifamily. You know, how do we get into it and what COVID-19 does for investors who are into bigger multifamilies. How do they handle that? So another great conversation to be had. You know, we're going to be talking about Windsor and the statistics of Windsor. That's something that I do every Thursday as well. So join in, register, and come on back. Thank you. Have a good night. Stay
awesome.
safe.
Thanks very much, guys.
And stay
Care.
away from each
If
other.
you guys want to reach out, feel free to reach out anytime. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Bye.
It's been 20 minutes so far. I've met an agent, property management company, contractor.
I guarantee you the answer is in this room.
Grown into this place of doing legal services for the last couple of years.
I'm investing in Windsor because I believe in this city.
Your network is your net worth. Properties are cheap, the numbers make sense, and there's a lot of growth potential here.